Okay, I think we're about to get started. Hi, everybody. Again, nice to see you all here. Thanks so much for joining and clearing up your schedules. We know how you're all very busy. So it's really nice to see you all. For anyone who hasn't met me yet on webinars, my name is Lial. I'm a Senior Customer Success Manager here, and I'm very excited to meet you on a very fancy date, February 22nd, 2022. So you can all remember the date of this webinar. Today we're meeting for a tips and tricks webinar. We're thinking what other things we can teach you, and we want to make sure that you're making the most out of Comeet. So really the goal of our webinar today is to make sure that you're all aware of the different features and capabilities of the system, and really are making the most of the automation that Comeet has to offer, and especially when it comes to candidate experience and automating your hiring processes. As always, this webinar is recorded. We're going to be sending it out to all of our participants as well as anyone who registered and didn't get a chance to join. You'll also be able to find the recording on our events page if you want to share it with your colleagues as well. We'll definitely have time for questions, so no worries about that. Feel free to write anything during the session in our Q&A, and I will address it at the end of the webinar. So let's get started. I'm going to go ahead and turn off my video so we can all focus on the screen and the important information that we have to share with you today. Great. So here you can see our agenda. We've taken the topics that we want to discuss today and put them under two main categories: recruiter automation and candidate experience. So we'll be talking a little bit about how to manage different processes for a candidate that's moving between positions, how to manage duplicates, and address bulk actions and the recruiting assistant role. When it comes to candidate experience, we're obviously going to talk about auto scheduling, make sure that everybody's aware of this amazing feature that's saving lots of time and enhancing candidate experience. And we'll also cover arrival instructions and instructions for interviews. Last but not least, we have some pretty exciting new and noteworthy features coming up this year. Some of them have actually already been released and are available in your Comeet account, so we're going to cover those as well. Great. So recruiter automation is something that's really important for all of us. You're very busy. You've got lots of positions open, a lot of candidates coming in, and we want to make sure that your processes are documented correctly and that all of the information regarding candidates is easy to find, accessible, and of course, historically accurate. So we want to make sure that processes are documented correctly. Under that, we have the scenario of changing a position versus starting a new hiring process. So basically what happens is sometimes we'll receive an application of a candidate for a specific position, and early on in the process, maybe during the screening or even the phone screen that you have with the candidate, you'll realize that they are a better fit for a different position, and you'll want to change them in Comeet and move them to a different position. And in some cases, we'll have candidates that are former candidates. Maybe they've been rejected or they withdrew their application previously, but today they are available or interested in restarting the process, and then we'll want to start a new hiring process. And because there's different scenarios, and this is really important for documentation and reports, we wanted to make sure that you're aware of the different options in the system. And as I mentioned at the beginning, you'll hear this definitely throughout the whole webinar. The correct documentation of candidate history of the different processes is super important, so we can access the data moving forward and have all of the current and past data per candidate documented correctly. Obviously, reporting is impacted because we're measuring candidate experience through the apply to hire parameter. So this is really important that everybody is aware of this. So I'm going to take you through three different scenarios. The first scenario is for changing a position, meaning I have a candidate, they applied for a specific position. I've either spoken to them or reviewed their CV, and I've decided that they're not a good fit for position A, and I want to move them to position B. I have another hiring manager that might want to see their CV and decide to move forward with them. In this case, I will click on the three dots in the candidate profile and choose change position. When I'm changing a position for a candidate, this means that there will still only be one active process at a time for this candidate. All of the steps will be documented in one candidate card, but when it comes to reports, you'll see that the documented steps are per position, meaning if that position A had the candidate for 3 steps, that will be in position A, and the steps that the candidate completed in position B will be under position B in the report. So that's something to be aware of. In addition, the apply to hire, which is one of the KPIs that we measure for how long the candidate has been in process since their application date, this KPI will be measured from the first date of application for the candidate. Another scenario that we have is either a process that we want to have for a candidate in 2 different positions, meaning we have 2 similar positions and we think the candidate could be a good fit for either one of them. In this case, we would want to have multiple processes per candidate and essentially have 2 different candidate cards for each one of their processes. In this case, if a candidate applies for, let's say, an account executive position and we have a similar account management position, we can click on the 3 dots. And choose start a new hiring process. If I choose start a new hiring process, I'll choose the position that I want the candidate to also be in process for. Of course, I'll assign the relevant steps starting from the beginning. And then this specific candidate will have 2 candidate cards. Each process is documented separately, and the apply to hire will be measured from the beginning of each process. So this is in a case of multiple processes per candidate, allowing you to see which position would be a better fit for them, and then you can make the decision moving forward. Another scenario that might happen, and we'll address this in the next slide as well, is a case where a candidate was previously rejected, maybe a year ago because of lack of a professional experience, or maybe they withdrew their application 2 years ago because they received another offer, and now we want to actually start a new hiring process for them. And in this case, we will also choose start a new hiring process and move forward with the candidate. Sometimes, and this can also happen as well, we'll have a candidate sort of that we haven't addressed, we haven't reached out to, but they applied a while ago. In this case, again, instead of moving forward with the process with a very past application date, like 5 months ago, we would prefer to start a new hiring process to sort of measure the apply to hire from the beginning. So you can see here in slide number 3 in this topic that in some cases we'll also go to the candidate card and change the status from rejected or withdrawn to in progress. Like I said before, this can happen when we're sort of like reviving a candidate that was in process in the past. This can also be done if by any chance you've made a mistake. Maybe you've marked the candidate as rejected or withdrawn by accident, or something changed last minute right after you updated Comeet. And in this case, if you're going to be looking to changing the status from the candidate card, the system will prompt a message essentially saying, okay, do you need to fix a mistake and undo the last status change? That means it will completely erase the last status change from the system. Or is this a past candidate that you want to revive and start a new hiring process for? So this is sort of a scenario that matches with the previous slide. Just to sum up this topic, okay, I want to make sure that it's clear that these different scenarios are managed internally by you and your recruiting team. It's key that each recruiter knows how to manage these processes in the system, and you align this internally so that all of the different processes are documented correctly on a candidate level, also allowing you to measure the apply to hire in an accurate manner. Our next topic, which also connects to a little bit automation, a little bit candidate experience in terms of the documentation, of course, mostly documentation, is the management of duplicates in Comeet. I'm going to take you to Comeet in just a sec and show you some examples, but I wanted to sort of give a quick introduction to this topic. So we have different cases in which candidates will apply several times to positions at our company. It can happen if they apply to the same position from different sources via referral via Facebook, or they can apply to different positions because they're interested in different aspects of working for our company. And managing duplicates in Comeet is really, really important because we're seeing that a lot of you, and this is just from conversations with some of you over the past couple of weeks, we're seeing that a lot of duplicates are sort of left unhandled and unmanaged. And this is really important for source attribution and for candidate history, because if we're not, solving all of our duplicates, we could have a case where we have a candidate that's not assigned with the right source. We want to make sure that each application is assigned with the relevant source, especially sources that we're paying for example, referrals or maybe headhunters and agencies that we're working with. Another part of resolving duplicates is having all of the information regarding one person connected in Comeet under the candidate card. So even if you see that this candidate has possible duplicates, but you're not resolving it, you don't have an accurate way of really keeping track of their past applications and their history. So this is really important for documentation. Our best practices on this topic is to solve duplicates, okay, all the time. Even if you're busy, it takes a few clicks, and we'll also talk about automating this a little bit. But essentially, if you're not going to be solving duplicates on an ongoing basis, it's going to add up and it's going to become a hassle. And of course, you will be, impacting documentation and source attribution. I'll also show you how to automate some of the duplicates in Comeet. So we're going to dive into Comeet and see some examples. So here you can see my Comeet screen. Okay, this is a demo account. So everything obviously here is demo data. The first thing I want to show you in the system is the settings that impact solving duplicates. When you click on the company name at the top right-hand corner and you click settings, you will see that you have access to the automation menu. Now, the automation menu is actually pretty important to be aware and familiar with in general because it sets up different automated processes that impact your hiring processes internally, but I'm going to address two specific categories here. The first one is how I will instruct the system to resolve duplicate applications. I can either disable the automatic handling of duplicates, which is definitely recommended for new clients and people who are just starting to get used to Comeet, just you can feel the system and of course be in control. If at some point you're interested in having the system work a little harder for you, you have the option to automatically resolve duplicates according to different settings. So as you can see in my demo, I've marked that if a candidate submits for the same position more than once within a 60-day period, I will essentially have the system solve the duplicate for me, meaning merge the two candidate cards, and the first original application will be the one that is saved and addressed in the hiring process. So if I have a candidate that applied to the same position through Facebook and through a job board, if Facebook was the first source, that's the source card that I'll be able to see. That's the source attribution that I will have for this candidate. And I won't have any, action item to do. It will be documented in the candidate card, which I'll show you how, but it will save you lots of time. I do want to emphasize here that automated duplicate will only happen in the case that there are unique data and information for the candidates, meaning we will have their full name together with email, phone number, LinkedIn URL, CV file, meaning we're not going to be, automatically solving duplicates in any case when the system is not 100% sure that this is the same candidate. You can also do this for different applications across your company's openings. So if you don't want candidates having the option initially to apply for different positions, you can mark the second option here. But these are the options that are available. Another thing that impacts solving duplicates is if we will allow candidates to be considered for multiple positions. Now, this is something that's important because in some cases, we do want the candidate to be able to meet with different teams maybe, and then make a final decision where they would be a better fit. And this will also help you manage duplicates in the way that you are letting a candidate essentially apply for different positions. You will mark if they're relevant or not, and everything will be documented as past processes and not only duplicates. And we'll see the difference in just a sec. So these are the automation settings. They're available obviously to anyone who's an admin or owner. And I want to take you through some examples of different scenarios where you'll be needing to solve duplicates. So we have a very classic example, okay, that we have the same candidate that applied for the same position, but they came in through two different agencies or two different headhunters. And obviously we need to decide which one is the relevant source, because if we will hire this candidate, we will need to pay a fee. So here you can see an example of a candidate, okay, Taylor Madison. Taylor Madison applied yesterday to the account executive position via the ABC Jobs Agency. And now the system is marking that I have another application with the same name. It could also be, by the way, a similar name, similar spelling, or sounds like, and the system will notify you. I can see that I have the option to open the other candidate card if needed. So I can compare, for example, two CVs if I don't have contact details, for example, for a candidate, and I only have CVs, I want to compare them to make sure it's the same person. So I can do that as well. In this case, when I see this duplicate notification, I'm going to click resolve. The first part of solving duplicates is to tell the system if it's the same person or not. Some people have the same name. There are a lot of common names out there. If someone has the same name and it's two different people, all you need to do is click different and you move forward as planned. If we identify that this is in fact the same person, but applied through two different sources, in this case, an ABC jobs agency and the IL recruitment agency, I can compare, again, opening the two different candidate cards and viewing them. I'll click same, telling Comeet this is the same person. Now, because I can see that they've applied for the same position, obviously I need to choose which process I'm moving forward with and assign the relevant source. In this case, you'll always be able to hover over when they applied and how long that they've been in progress. So it's really easy, even if there's an hour or a 3-hour difference between the different applications, we can see that this application came in yesterday morning and this application came today early in the day. So obviously this is the application we're going to go for because they applied first, and ABC Jobs will get the credit for this specific hire if we move forward. In order to do that, I'm going to click continue, and you'll see that the stop process indication will automatically be assigned to the other process because we're looking at the same position. Not only does the system know that we need to stop the other process, it will also recommend in the bottom part that we notify this specific agency that this candidate is a duplicate. Okay, you have complete control. You can click don't notify or notify. You can ensure that the ABC Jobs is in fact the current source. It also marks it as the earliest source, so it's easy to make that decision if you have several duplicates or several processes. Once I click confirm and close, I will have a pop-up message to approve that I'm basically telling this agency, thank you for submitting Taylor Madison. They're already in our records, and I can click send and notify the agency, of course. It's important to mention that when solving duplicates, the candidate does not receive any kind of notification because it doesn't matter to them. They will receive the thank you for applying email if they applied via your website. They will receive any kind of communication from you if you've decided to do so, but duplicates is only an internal source attribution documentation matter that you need to handle. I want to show you now how the duplicates will look documented in the card. I have the positions tab, and here I can scroll to the bottom, and I can see quite clearly that there are stopped hiring process, means duplicate applications. And here I can see that there was a duplication, the process was stopped, and that's it. I don't need any more information. It doesn't matter why there wasn't a rejection reason, there wasn't any kind of process. This is how a duplicate is documented. Another case is we have two candidates that are, let's say, applying for two different positions, but the positions are similar, and I want to allow them to be in two different processes at once. Here we can see Gabby Smith. Gabby Smith applied for the office manager position via LinkedIn and also for the executive assistant via Facebook. And here, again, even if it's two different processes, I need to solve the duplicate and basically say Gabby Smith is the same person so that everything will be documented correctly. And if someone, for example, is managing the office manager position, they need to know that this candidate is also in progress for another position. And if we're not solving duplicates, this information isn't very clear. I'll click resolve. Okay, in this case, I know that it's the same person. And here you can see that I have the option, because I set it up in my settings, that a candidate can continue in two processes, okay, two parallel processes. I'll click continue. I'll be able to click continue for both of them. I want the executive assistant hiring team to meet Gabby as well as the office manager hiring team. These are similar positions, and I want to see which would be a good fit so I can continue with both processes and have parallel processes for this candidate. In addition, I can decide whether I'm assigning one source for both of these processes. The earliest free source is the recommended one by Comeet. So I can decide that even though they applied via LinkedIn job slots, because I already had their CV from Facebook, I can assign Facebook as the source for both of these processes. You also have control over that and can decide that each process has a different source. That's completely up to you. In this case, there's no one to notify. We're continuing with both processes, and I'll do confirm and close. The meaning of this is two things. First of all, you'll see that there's a very clear banner at the top of the candidate card indicating to the hiring team that this candidate is in process for another position. This is super important for communication. We don't want Gabby receiving two different phone calls from two different recruiters that have no idea that he's applied to two positions and not be synced and, you know, sort of look bad to the candidate. So that's one part of it. And the other part is how things are documented. because now under the position tab, it's very clear that this that this candidate is in two different positions. If I were to reject him or her, I would be able to see the reason, and I would always have a candidate card that kept track of the process. Last, I want to show you sort of the difference between how past processes and duplications look in the candidate card. Here we can see an example of Daniel. Daniel has two current processes. I can see all of his past hiring processes that were, a while ago. I can see the reason, I can see the source. I also have a candidate card documented. So that's what happens when I do continue for parallel processes. Even if I decide to reject from one of the processes, they will be documented separately. And duplicates, again, look like the first example that we saw together. They're essentially just an indication that there was a duplicate. There's no more information. If needed, you can use the source history filter in the candidate card to identify the different sources for the different duplications that took place if needed, okay? Just before we finish up this topic, I wanna show you what we're seeing in a lot of different accounts. We're seeing that someone is in process, maybe they're even advanced to the reference check or to a technical assignment, and they have a bunch of duplicates that haven't been dealt with. And there's actually not that much to do here, but it matters because right now, if I go to Carrie's Positions tab, I'll see a past process and a current process. I won't know about anything else. But if I resolve the duplicates that have been just outstanding and have been waiting for me to just mark them as confirmed, all I need to do is mark that they're continuing with the current process. And then Comeet knows to link this candidate with all of the different applications. I can choose confirm and close, and there's really not much to do here, but now you can see that the positions tab will be much more updated. And as a recruiter or as a hiring manager, when I'm looking at this candidate, I have all of their historic data documented in one easy, accessible place to make sure that I have all of the information I need to make decisions. Okay, so this is why this is such an important topic and why we've talked about it so long. So again, make sure you're solving these duplicates, make sure to communicate this within your team. And if you have the option and want to allow candidates to be in multiple processes, make sure you set that up in your system automation menu. I'm going to jump through some of the slides since we saw it live in the system, and we're moving on to our next topic. So we all know that you guys are swamped. You have lots of CVs to screen, lots of rejection emails to send out, and obviously lots of other tasks. And in Comeet, we want to make it easier for you to be able to perform bulk actions with candidates, meaning the option to either select a group of candidates and send them all an email. This could be relevant if you have, some candidates that withdrew their candidacy last year, but maybe now they're interested in starting a new process. You want to reach out to them with an email. Maybe you want to select a group of candidates that have, some kind of common skill and tag them. And there's lots of different things that you can do when selecting a group of candidates. You can see the list on the screen. And I'm also going to show you some examples. So bulk actions can really save you some time, especially if you have a bunch of candidates that you all want to reject, or you just want to send them an email with a few clicks instead of doing things one by one. So let's see how this looks in Comeet. So in Comeet, there's two main places that you'll be able to perform bulk actions. The first place is your task view, which is pretty straightforward. If you're using my task, which you all should be, by the way, that's a big part of automation in Comeet, is to have the system work for you and make sure that you don't need to remember anything by heart. You have all of the information of all of your open tasks, all of the open tasks of your hiring team, and then you'll be able to, effectively manage your time and prioritize which should be done first. So that's just an unofficial tip for me. We have tasks within each position, which allow us to also see candidates that have pending tasks from the other hiring team, or only the tasks that I'm assigned to. And you can see your tasks on a system level and then filter them either by position. You can also look by source, decide you want to address referrals first before moving forward, or you can look at time assigned and then see which tasks are outstanding and address them first. So that's just regarding tasks. Now from the task screen, if I have, for example, a lot of candidates waiting for a CV screen, this will be under the go, no go step. And here, if I know that these are a group of candidates that I want to screen really quickly, either mark them as relevant or not, I have the option to select some of them together. You can see that I can do this by clicking the V at the bottom left corner of their profile. I can also scroll to the bottom of the list if I have a long one, stand in the middle of the last candidate card, click Shift on my keyboard, Not sure if this is for Mac users, so you'll need to translate this for yourselves. But if you're using a regular PC, you'll click Shift and mark the entire list really easily, sort of like you do an Excel sheet. And then you can see that you've selected a group of candidates. Now, if these candidates are all in the same step, they're all in a go, no-go step, I have the option to either reject all of them with one click, decide that they're not relevant for their positions that they've applied to. I will need to choose one rejection region that is common for all of them. Keep that in mind. And I can do that by one click. If they're all relevant for me, instead of going one by one, I can also decide to mark them as go and basically bump them up to the next step in the process per position. That's one example. Another example that's very common is the send notification task. This is definitely a task that builds up for a lot of us. We have lots of rejection emails that we need to send out. If you've gone through the emails and the candidates and you know that there's no one here that needs a phone call, or you're ready to send out the emails, again, here you can click the first one and scroll to the bottom of the list. Choose the last one. Don't click here, just click Shift on your keyboard and then click in the middle, and it will mark all of them together. Now they're all in the same send notification step because they all need rejection emails, but they each sort of need a different email because they were rejected at different steps of the process. And that's what's great here, because you can see that it recognizes that 3 of them need that after phone interview rejection. Another one has the after in-person rejection. We have some of them who have been rejected from specific processes but are still under consideration for others. And here it's really clear to see that you can just click you've chosen all of them, and you can click send all of the message together. Here we have some that are missing details, so we can only select 7 just for this example. If we've decided that we don't want to send emails, we've communicated with all of them via WhatsApp, text, or email, and thank them for their time, we can also just do don't send, close 14 steps, and these tasks will no longer be in our task list. So that's another example. The other part of Comeet that you can perform bulk actions from is from the advanced search. By the way, if you're not using the advanced search, it's a great time to look up our training video about the advanced search. It's an amazing tool in Comeet that helps you, go through your candidate base, look for different groups of candidates that could be relevant to reach out to, candidates that are in progress, by source types, by date of application, by different skills, by their experience. There's really a vast, wide option here of filters, so you're definitely welcome to check this out. If I've decided to search for a specific group of candidates, and maybe I've also saved it as bookmarks, another nice feature of the advanced search, I can, for example, look for a group of candidates and also perform bulk actions from the advanced search. Here, I can click one by one or scroll to the bottom, hover over the last one, click Shift, and mark it. And now I have 5 different candidates. Now they're in different parts of the process. I don't have an action item in terms of sending a rejection email or marking them as go, no go, but I can either mark them all as high priority. I can tag them if they are all English speakers. I can just tag them all with the English speaker tag. I can email them. Maybe I've prepared an email template saying, hi, we were in touch a while ago. We'd like to, reach out again and continue the hiring process. You can choose from your custom email templates that you've prepared. You can also change position for them or change their status if they're all under the same status. So that's just an example of the different bulk actions that you can perform in the system. This can really save you some time and make sure that you're on top of all of your tasks. Great, so let's move on to the last topic under recruiter automation, and this is the recruiter assistant role. So as you know, when we're adding a new teammate to Comeet, we'll add them to the system. And then within each position, we'll assign them with the different roles. Either they'll be a hiring manager, they could be part of the recruiting team as coordinators, and of course, they would be either interviewers, managers. We have lots of different options, as you can see in the hiring team dropdown. Now, there's one specific role that not everybody is aware of, and it's called the recruiting assistant role. This essentially means that I can assign a role in addition to an existing role to anyone in the hiring team that is going to be in charge of coordinating and scheduling all of the interviews. So you might have a specific designated recruiting assistant helping you out for a specific position, and then that's a great solution. But in a lot of cases, recruiters themselves are in charge of all of the scheduling, and this will help you keep on top of all of your tasks. So I want to show you how this looks in Comeet, because this is a really nice time saver and it really helps manage your tasks. So let's say I'm at the senior customer success manager role and I have here my hiring team, okay? You can see here that Amanda, she's not only the lead recruiter, but she's also the lead recruiting assistant. How is that set up? Basically, when Amanda will open up the position, she'll choose her hiring manager, she'll choose additional interviewers or recruiters that are working with her. And if she is going to be assigned with scheduling all of the interviews, she can click on herself and give herself also the recruiting assistant role, just like she can do this for anybody else. What this essentially means is that each step in the workflow, okay, that is an interview type step, will now have a drop down allowing this step to be either scheduled by the recruiting assistant or the interviewers themselves. Now the default is recruiting assistant, okay? So when you open up a position, you can just go to the hiring team, decide who's scheduling the interviews, assign them with a recruiting assistant permission, and that's it. But if there's a specific interviewer, let's say Adam, and he wants to schedule his own interviews, he wants to pick up the phone and speak to the candidates and not have this helped out with, you can change per step that there's a specific interviewer that wants to schedule their own interviews. Now, how does this help out the recruiter? If I'm the recruiter and I'm looking at my tasks, it's really easy for me to identify which tasks I have that are interview on schedule, meaning these are all of the interviews that I need to perform. You can see that it's on me as well in terms of the tasks, right? But it can also help me identify which interviews I need to schedule as a recruiting assistant, meaning for other teammates and hiring team members that I'm working with. And this can help me prioritize my work and identify where I'm needed. Maybe I want to start out the morning, schedule all of the meetings that my hiring team needs, and then I can go ahead and schedule my own. So that's just a nice tip regarding the recruiting assistant role. So it's really recommended if you have someone who's helping you with schedule, it just makes it much more easier to keep track of all of the tasks. Great. Now we're going to move on to the second part, which is candidate experience, and talk about a few small things that can help you enhance your communication with your candidates. The first topic, as mentioned, is auto scheduling. I'm sure a lot of you have heard about auto scheduling before, but because this is such an important feature in Comeet that saves a lot of time for scheduling, automates all of the interviewing process in terms of scheduling, and really enhances candidate experience, we did want to mention it again. And we'll also talk about arrival instructions and instructions for interviews. So auto scheduling, as you know, basically allows you to go to your personal profile, connect your calendar, and set up your preferences. You'll need to set up your weekly working hours, how much you want to dedicate to interviews on a daily and weekly basis in terms of hours, and then the minimum notice that you want to receive about interviews that have been scheduled for you. Once you've done this, either the recruiter or the hiring manager, anyone who's set up their preferences, can send out a link to the candidate inviting them to select the time for their interview. The candidate will receive a link that can be opened up on mobile or on a browser. They'll be able to open it up when relevant, when convenient for them. They don't need to pick up the phone in the middle of a workday when they're in meetings. They have an email that they can open up when they want to. And at that point, they can click and see the different options that are available in the schedule of that same interviewer. They obviously don't have access to your schedule. You can see here in the screenshot that they'll just see what's available. They'll be able to scroll between the different options, choose the best time that's relevant for them. And once they select a time, all of the interview invites are sent out automatically. I want to add here that when you're sending this out to candidate, you're also sending this out with the details about the interview. So in this example, the candidate can see that it's a 90-minute in-person interview and the address where it will be taking place. So the candidate knows that they need to calculate commuting to this interview. If it was a Zoom online video or phone interview, would also be mentioned here. And this really gives the control to the candidate, allowing them to be in control of what time is convenient for them. It really eliminates hassle in terms of scheduling. And it's really comfortable for global interviews as well, because the slots will always update with the local time of the candidate according to the hiring manager or interviewer's calendar. So if you haven't tested this out yet or implemented it, it's a good time to read more about this feature and watch our training video. This feature is available for all Starta Ultimate and Enterprise customers. It's a real life-changing feature. We're seeing amazing data from our customers and really getting amazing feedback. And I really do want to encourage you that even if it's not a good match for all of your team or or it's not a good match for all of your hiring managers, it could still save you a lot of time for your own interviews. So it's definitely worth discussing internally and implementing. Two more small things, small but meaningful, that I want to talk about candidate experience are the arrival instructions options and the instructions for interviews. So, we're all dealing in the past 2 years with change in scenery in terms of how we're meeting and interacting with our candidates and our coworkers. But hopefully where you are located, slowly, you're starting to have more face-to-face meetings and also face-to-face interviews. And in Comeet, when setting up an in-person interview, within the interview invite, you can actually implant very easily arrival instructions for the candidate. Meaning instead of them having, to add around or get lost maybe and come in all stressed for their interview, they'll have the exact arrival instructions implanted into the invite. So I'm going to show you that in Comeet. The first thing that you need to do as a system admin or owner is go to your system settings, and then you can go to your locations. Now, each location should be set up correctly. If you don't have a little orange exclamation mark here, that means it's correct. And under each one of your locations where you've entered that address, you can add arrival instructions. So you can say that parking is available across the street, make sure to bring a photo ID, take the elevator to the 33rd floor and turn right. Okay, so that's just an example of arrival instructions that can be very helpful for the candidate. Once you've set up arrival instructions for each one of your locations, you can confirm that they actually appear in the email template that is sent out to candidate for in-person interviews. So over here under the auto templates for candidates, you have interviews scheduled in person. This is the automated interview invite. And here you can see that that attribute available is arrival instructions. It's marked right over here. If needed, you can click on the text, click insert attribute, and of course add the arrival instructions for the candidate. So this is super useful. You also have the location map available. Of course, when you're checking out your email templates, it's really important to also preview them. Here you can see that if you're using the Google dropdown, you'll have a map, you'll have arrival instructions. And this just really saves hassle and makes it much more easier for the candidate to arrive on time to their interview, making sure they have all of the information, not having to explain separately or write the instructions, manually for each one that you invite for an interview. Another thing that you can do to make sure that you're communicating and coordinating expectations regarding interviews is adding instructions for interviews. This can be both for the teammates and the hiring team and for the actual candidate. So by entering this on the different steps in the workflow of the position, you'll be able to have all of your interview invites update automatically with the relevant instructions per step. If it's a specific interview that you want your candidate to prepare 3 examples of clients that they've worked with that are Fortune 500 companies, or maybe you want them to be prepared to talk about a specific case study that you've sent them, anything you want to communicate with them in advance, you can set this up on a position level and have it automated. That's how teammates and candidates come more prepared, and the interview is obviously much more effective and professional. And if you're duplicating positions, you can obviously duplicate this as well. So let's take a quick look. If I go to a specific position, I'm going to go with a senior customer success manager position. Here in the workflow, you can see that each step that is set up as an interview will also have the part where they can add instructions to teammates. Please make sure to ask about these 3 personality traits, or make sure that this interview covers the following topics. And for instructions to candidates, you can enter the details here. Both these fields will now be available in your email templates. For candidates, any kind of interview invite will be able to include instructions to candidates. Doesn't matter if it's in-person, video, or phone. And for your internal teammates that are receiving this email template, which is the invitation to the interview, they also can have here the interview instructions mentioned as well. So this is super helpful. So we've summed up that part of recruiter automation and of candidate experience. Lots of tips and tricks that are key to be familiar with, and you can share with your team as well. Before we go to some Q&A, I would love your cooperation in launching a poll. As you know, in our webinars, we love to get your feedback and make sure that we're in sync with you guys. So you'll have a poll launch very soon on your screen, and you'll be able to sort of give your feedback. So feel free to communicate that with us. This is also a really good opportunity to write any questions that you had during the webinar in our Q&A. I'm going to go over some noteworthy features that have come up, and then we'll have time for your questions. I'll give you another minute here to give your feedback. Great, guys. Thank you so much. We really appreciate it. Your feedback is super important. So thank you for sharing that. I'll let you fill out the poll real quick. We'll talk some new features and dive into your questions. Okay, great. Thanks for your feedback. Let's go ahead and talk about some noteworthy features in Comeet. So as I mentioned, there's some new features that are already available in Comeet today. One of them is regarding copying workflows and hiring teams. We really recommend using the duplicate position option, because sometimes you want to make sure that your team is, moving forward with a position that's already been set up. If there was a marketing manager position a year ago, and now the same steps need to be added as well, instead of building and creating it from scratch, you can duplicate positions. And when doing this, now the system will prompt the message asking you if you want to copy only the workflow steps and assign a new hiring team, or you're also having the same hiring team continue the hiring process. So this is just a nice addition. Another thing that we've added, and this is really important for global interviews and global hiring in general, is the regional format for date and time. You can now adapt your profile under your company settings or different locations accordingly, and decide what will be the regional format for date and time in all of your interview invites. So this can really eliminate confusion and make sure that each interview invite has the relevant format in terms of the date and time that's presented. So this is really nice to have and convenient. As always, we're always adding new integrations and looking to partner up with more partners that will help you, our clients, enhance the hiring process. You can see a list of some of our new integrations. Some of them are for, background checks or skills assessment. We also have some new single sign-on platform integrations, so feel free to check them out as well. The last new feature that we have currently available in Comeet is actually pretty exciting, and this is something that I can share that was really connected to feedback that we received from our customers. As you know, we're really in sync with you guys, and your feature requests and ideas definitely come through to our product team, and we're always looking to enhance Comeet for you. We've now added the option to create your own pre-screening questionnaires that are diversity surveys. Up until now, we've had the option to add the EEO survey to all of your application forms and use the diversity report in Comeet Insight. So today, we're going to help you promote diversity, make sure you comply with your local regulations, and now you can add and create your own custom diversity survey. Okay, so it's a little bit different than the EEO survey that you were using before, but I do want to mention that this is voluntary. The information will not appear on the candidate profile or impact the hiring processes anyway, and it will be available to be exported only by the owner of your Comeet system. So this has, quite a lot of impact. You can either use the Comeet template to get started or create your own. Really, the goal here is to allow you to track diversity initiatives and comply with the local regulations that address diversity. So feel free to read more about that in our help center as well. Coming up soon. Okay, so coming up soon, we have some very exciting updates in Comeet. I can say personally that I'm very excited about them. The first thing that we have is the option to define position templates. Position templates allow you to really align all of your workflows with the same steps that you want to be aligned across the organization, making reporting much more effective. So you can make sure that each position is aligned and not every recruiter is creating different positions and different steps. The next big thing that's happening is the new candidate profile. This is going to be launched in the upcoming months, and you're definitely going to get communication and more information around this. But I'm really excited to share that our team has really invested a lot of effort in redesigning the candidate profile. We want to really make it super dynamic, easy to use and intuitive for hiring managers as well as recruiters to address their different needs and the usage that you need on a day-to-day basis. So this candidate profile is going to be looking differently, acting differently, and I can ensure that it's definitely going to be improved. It's going to be a big deal for all of the hiring managers and recruiters. You'll see that it has different capabilities, can be minimized and expanded when making decisions. So once this comes out, we'll definitely reach out to keep you posted. You'll also be able to see that the redesigned candidate profile will also impact mobile performance. So as you know, Comeet doesn't have an app, but now you'll have improved access on mobile, basically an improved version with more functionalities. It'll be easier to screen candidates, review feedback, and communicate with your teammates and candidates. The other big project that our team is working on, we've grown our BI team and we're investing a lot of effort into redesigning our reports. So we know how reporting is a huge deal for recruiting teams out there, that a lot of you are data-driven hiring teams that want to access data and use it to leverage your hiring efforts and KPIs. We're now redesigning all of our reports in Comeet. We're going to make them more accessible, more dynamic, more customizable. And they're all going to be in one place, redesigned and easy to use. This is going to be a huge project that we're rolling out in the upcoming months. So keep tuned, make sure to stay tuned and keep updated accordingly. Last but not least, we have a new LinkedIn integration coming up. The LinkedIn integration will allow you to connect your LinkedIn recruiter account with Comeet. This is a really big deal because now you don't need to manage communications and candidate lists separately. Everything will be in sync. You'll be able to import the communications that you have via Comeet. You'll also be able to see, keep track of duplicates and conversations. So this is going to be very, very exciting. Of course, we're going to update you every time something new comes out. And I'll just mention that in Comeet, just a small tip in that sense is that at any given time, you'll have a little pink icon here of a little present. You'll always be able to see what's new in Comeet. So don't hesitate to check that out. Great, time for Q&A. Thank you for tuning in and staying with us up until this point. I'll go ahead and check out the QA. Just taking a sip of water here. So let's go ahead and see some of your questions and make sure that you're getting the information you need before we wrap things up. Okay, how can I give all interviewers access to feedback from other interviewers? This is actually a very important question, and this is something that you can definitely adapt in Comeet. So I'm going to go ahead and show you. This can be done via your settings. Okay, so you need to be a system admin or owner in order to do this. Once you go ahead and click the settings, you can go into your permissions menu. Now, in the permissions menu, you have different options to customize the different permissions that you're giving your team. And under, if you scroll down to the position level, okay, you will have a permission called Can Interviewers See Evaluations Submitted by Others? And this is important because it's, would want to be something you would align with your company guidelines. You can either say that interviewers, meaning anyone who is marked as an interviewer within a position hiring team, this is excluding obviously hiring managers and recruiters who have full access. Anyone who is only an interviewer, will they always be able to see evaluations even before they've actually performed their interview? They can either see evaluations only after their step has been completed, meaning after they have submitted their interview to prevent bias, or we want to give them always access to all the evaluations. Maybe there's information they need to read or be aware of before they go in and meet the candidate. So this needs to be decided on a company level. Okay, it's not customizable per position, but hopefully that can help you out in that aspect. So anyone who doesn't have access to settings, okay, that's something you need to solve internally. In Comeet, only if you are an owner or admin, you have access to settings. So if you're not able to make any changes, please make sure to reach out to your system owner, okay? I have a question here about the advanced search. So in the advanced search, we were asked here if we have location filters. So we definitely do. Under the position filter here, you can look for a specific position or for all of the candidates that apply to all of the positions under a specific location. The advanced search is a really, really important tool, especially for those who've been using Comeet for quite a while and you have a large database of candidates. So we'll make sure to send out that video with the webinar recording so you can learn more about that. In terms of the AM, PM option and auto scheduling, just like I showed, we now have the regional time format. Okay, so if you go to company settings and you go to your profile, you can decide on a default regional format for date and time, and this will show up in all of the interview invites. So you can decide on the different options. You can see here that there's different languages and different formats. We also have this on a location level. So you either have the default on a company level. If you have different locations, you want it to look differently, you could do it, in German or in any other language and any other format. Okay, we have actually other questions that I want to address here. So I'm a new user and I'm trying to figure out how to change interview questions for each role. So that's a great question because that's another feature that I would love for you guys to be aware of, which is interview questions. Interview questions is the option to build different sets of questions that you want to use when interviewing your candidates. They can be assigned per step in the workflow. As a system admin or owner, you have access to interview questions for across the company, but each user should be able to create their own personal question sets. You need to add question set, fill out the questions that you want to add, and decide if it's going to be a personal question set or a public question set. These question sets can be assigned on a workflow level per step. So if I have a specific step called the on-site interview, I now have a drop-down for interview questions. I can decide in advance which question sets I want to use during this interview. If I didn't do this in advance, that's completely fine. Let's say I have a candidate that I want to interview. Let's go into a candidate card and click on the interview button over here. Once I enter the specific interview evaluation, I will also have a drop down of all of the questions that I would like to use. Okay, so we can see an example of that. Let's take a look at another candidate and enter the interview evaluation. Let's see, we have some more questions in the meantime. Yes, can I sort my task list to be by position rather than by location? So actually, if you're looking at the positions list, positions can be sorted and grouped by the different categories here, such as location, department, hiring manager, or internal position fields. If we're talking about your tasks, you can choose which tasks to show and group them by position. For example, if I want to look at them by position, you can do position and step, okay? And you can obviously do source or time assigned. So you have different options here. Flexibility regarding email templates. Fantastic question. We were asked about this during our Hebrew webinar in the morning as well. So email templates is actually a really important part of automating your communication with your candidates. I'm going to go ahead and refer you to our help center for videos about email templates, because there's automatic templates that you can customize according to different actions in the system. And you also have the option to use custom email templates that you create. So that's definitely a topic that you should check out on your own. And of course, use our support team if you have any specific questions. In terms of making personal interview questions available for other users, this will depend on your permissions in the system. I think we've covered almost all of the questions here. If you haven't received an answer to anything, feel free to reach out to our support team. I'm going to go ahead and summarize our webinar for today and let you all continue with the rest of your day. I do want to remind you that you will receive a recording of this webinar in the next couple of days, and we would appreciate your feedback if you have more detailed feedback or questions to ask. For any one of you who this is their first webinar or are interested in hearing more about our previous webinars, you can find all of the webinars that we have on our Comeet events page. There's recordings that you can use and share with your team, so feel free to check that out. Just summarizing what we talked about today. So again, thank you for being with us. We talked about recruiter automation, the different tools that can save you time, make sure you're organized and being effective in terms of all of the different tasks that you have and communicating with candidates. In terms of candidate experience, it's always going to be something that's important for us at Comeet, and we know how important it is for you. So it will always be a part of what we do here at Comeet, and it should be considered all the time via the different custom email templates, the arrival instructions, and auto scheduling. Really make sure to take advantage of the different tools that enhance candidate experience. And the more you know, the more time you save, the more you're utilizing the system, taking advantage of all of the different features. I'm sure you'll all see the benefit of saving time and keeping on top of things. It was really great to see so many of you join us today. So thank you so much for your time. I really hope this webinar was helpful and insightful for all of you. And we'll see all of you again soon for our next webinar. Have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.